Hey sports card fans, it's John, Wade Boggs fan. Hope you're all doing well. At the beginning of the year, when I set my hobby goals for 2025, one of them was to hopefully pick up 7 more cards on my 100 cards for $100,000 project. Well, at this year's Strongsville show, I picked up 2 cards off of that list, and at this year's National, I managed to pick up 7 cards off of that list. So I've met my yearly hobby goal or target for that project, and the year is not over yet, so we'll see. Maybe I can pick up 1 or 2 more by the end of the year. Now, in this video here, I'm going to be showing off cards numbers 58 through 64. Now, I started this project in November of 2021, so it's just a little bit short of 4 years that I've been working on this project, and I think I've done a great job so far in picking up 64 of those cards. Some of them were not too expensive, but the more I chipped away at those cheaper cards, the cards became more and more expensive. So I knew my progress was going to be slowing down, but at Strongsville and the National, I was able to save up some money and purchase some cards off of that list. So I am going to show off the 7 cards that I picked up from the National. I like to keep a record of the progress of this project, so I'm doing this separate video here. But in addition to just showing off the cards, I'm going to talk about specifically for each card what I thought I would have to spend to acquire that card, what I spent for that card, and to see whether I saved any money or in some cases maybe had to spend more than I thought to acquire the card, and then give a summary of all 64 cards that I've purchased so far and see how I've done on my progress. So I'm going to turn the camera around, show off those 7 cards from the National that I picked up off of my 100 cards for $100,000 project. All right, the first card that I'm going to be showing off is my 1960 Topps Willie McCovey rookie card. Just love the centering on that, how the green, the right side there, the background, how that's nice and solid. Very few print marks. Here is the back again. This was the last card I picked up at the show with my literally last dollars that I had. So this one here, just for, again, the discussion purposes for how it fits into the project, it is in a PSA 4. Now, remember, when I'm going over the prices that I thought I would have to pay for the card and the grade that I put my initial list together, we're talking about prices from November of 2021. So obviously prices for some of these cards have changed since then, but that's still my target of what I think I would have to spend. So in some cases I realize that, hey, prices have gone up over the last 4 years for certain cards, and I have to adjust my collecting accordingly to see if I can continue my progress of trying to save money on some of these purchases. So on my list, again, when I put the list together, I had to have it equal and even $100,000. And so there were certain cards that I put on the list in certain number grades that at the time were selling for a certain dollar amount that made everything even out. So I had this Willie McCovey rookie card in a PSA 6 on my list. And at the time, I thought I would have to spend $350 to pick up a PSA 6 copy. And I didn't look up what a PSA 6 is going for now, but based on what I paid for this PSA 4, that price is probably still fairly relevant. But considering I dropped down and got a gorgeous example here in a PSA 4, rather than spend $350 to try to get a 6, I only spent $155 on this card. So I am $195 to the good. Now, based on my $155 purchase price, how did I do given that this is a PSA 4? Well, currently on the low end of PSA 4s, they're going for around $85. The mid comp, the average price for a PSA 4 is $114, and the current high end for a PSA 4 copy is $140. So I was about $15 above the highest recent comp. But I mean, the eye appeal on this thing is just outstanding. So again, for $15, I got the seller down. I forget what they were originally asking for the card. 175 maybe, I think. It was probably in my recap video. I don't have the number in front of me, but in terms of adding this card as part of my 100 cards for $100,000, I think I did really well with this copy here. Didn't need a 6. Picked up a great looking example here. Just happens to be a 4, and I saved $195 from dropping down a couple number grades. So that is card number 58. All right, the next one here, card number 59, is my 1951 Bowman Whitey Ford rookie card. I saw this, and even though, yeah, the card has some issues, it's a PSA 2, I just like the overall eye appeal of it. The issues that the card has, they don't really bother me that much. And so when we go over the numbers here, you'll see why I think, at least for me, this was a good buy. So on my initial list, again, from November of 2021, I had the card listed in a PSA 3. And I thought in order to get a PSA 3 copy, I would need to spend $500. Well, by picking up this PSA 2 copy, here's the back of it. Again, for a low number grade card, I think it has great eye appeal. Love the centering on it. The registration's really nice. The color pops. There just happens to be a few creases on the card. And some corner wear. But, you know, I think it's beautiful. So, in dropping down and picking up this PSA 2, I spent $310 for this. So here's another card. I saved $190 instead of spending close to $500. And I haven't looked up. I probably should have for this video what the current prices of the cards and the grades that I have on my list, what they're going for. But rather than spend maybe close to $500 for a 3, I saved $190 by picking up this PSA 2 copy. So what are PSA 2 copies going for? In other words, how did I do in picking up this specific copy? Well, on the low end, they're selling for around $230. Mid-range average comp, $330. And on the high end for a PSA 2, $460. So I'm just under, average comps for a PSA 2. And I think this is another winner in my book, not only for the copy here, what I saved from not going out and buying a PSA 3 copy, plus for the PSA 2, I think I got a pretty good deal. So that is card number 59. The next one, card number 60, is this 1955 Topps Ted Williams. This completed my Topps run for Ted Williams. I'm a long ways away from completing his playing days run. Haven't even touched the play balls and leaf and all those other cards. But this great looking example here. Great looking example. Love the centering, the colors, the registry, everything. It's a 3. Again, to be honest with you, I really haven't looked closely at this card to try to find why it may be a 3. Honestly, I don't care. I'm not interested in trying to find the minute little issues that this card may have. I just love it. But let's get into the numbers for this. All right, on my 100 cards for $100,000 list, I had this in a 5, so I gonna target, in theory, a PSA 5 copy. And for PSA 5 back in 2021, I thought I'd have to spend $500. Well, this PSA 3 copy today, or at the National, only cost me $240. So I saved $260. $260 from what I had it on my list in a PSA 5. And let me tell you, maybe the corners would be a little bit nicer in a PSA 5, but hey, I love this copy here. I don't care what the number grade is. And, well, actually I do care, because it saved me $260 from potentially having to spend close to $500 to try to get a 5 on the slab here rather than a 3. So let's look at that back again. So how did I do with picking up this PSA 3 copy? Well, currently on the low end, PSA 3s are going for $205. Average comps, $280, and on the high end, $395. So to me, this is a high-end example with the eye appeal to me. Let me know what you think in the comments, but to spend $240 and to get it $40 less than average comps, when it's all about eye appeal today, I think this may be my best deal of the National, of all 7 cards that I picked up. Just an amazing example here of this card. So lucky to have found this and got what appears to be, even based on today's standards for a PSA 3, a great deal. So that's card number 60. The next one, let me change my notes here, is one of the Hank Aaron's that I was hoping to pick up at the National, and I did. The 63 Topps. I was having such a hard time trying to find a nice copy on eBay. I saw 2 copies that I was battling back and forth. One was this PSA 4, another one was a PSA 5. And honestly, the PSA 4 was better centered. I probably would not have to in order to get the PSA 5, I think I would have had to spend maybe an extra $40. So I would have gotten maybe a slightly better deal on the 5 in terms of what 5s go for versus this 4. I paid sort of on the high end of 4s here, but I think it is well worth it. Just love the eye appeal of it. How dark and bold the colors are in the front. You get sometimes this green and the orange there are faded, but the color on this just pops. And a solid green bottom there. You don't see much chipping at all. So how did I do in terms of my list? All right, I had on the list this card being in a PSA 5, and I thought I would have to spend $250 to pick up a PSA 5. Well, for this PSA 4, I spent $200. So in theory, I saved $50 by picking up this PSA 4. Now, how did I do in picking up this PSA 4? Well, currently on the low end of PSA 4s, and I'm sure those are ones that don't have as nice eye appeal but have a technical grade of 4, $110. Mid-range average comps, $145, and on the high end, $215. So I spent $200, high end's $215, so I'm right at the high end of recent comps, but I think the eye appeal on this justifies it. I certainly wouldn't put this around the $145 range. To me, this has exceptional eye appeal for the grade. So all in all, I did okay on this one. Not as good as maybe some of the others, but hey, I am so happy that I decided to go with this PSA 4 and not the 5. I did it just the 5 was just did not look better than this one. That this 4 looked better than that 5 based on the centering. So that was card number 61. All right, card number 62 was another Hank Aaron that I was hoping to pick up, working on his Playing Days run, his 1957 Topps. Fell in love with the color, registration, the centering, the lack of snowing. I've seen a lot of Hank Aaron's that just through the center of the card is just white. The color has been worn away. This ticks all those boxes. Centering, registration, nice bold colors. Here is the back. Again, really nice back. And it's a 3. So, what did I have it on my list? Well, I had this one in a PSA 5, and I thought at the time, for a PSA 5, I would have to spend $350. Well, this PSA 3 copy only cost me $225. So by going from a 5 to a 3, again, 5 at 2021 prices to a 3 current prices, I saved $125 by getting this example. And this is just, to me, another example, along with the 55 Topps Ted Williams, of buying the card, not the grade. It's just the number grade. A 5 would have just been more of like a status symbol. Hey, look, I have this card in a 5. I'm not embarrassed or shamed that, oh yeah, it's only a 3. But look at this 3. I mean, it's outstanding. Okay, so how did I do in picking up this PSA 3 copy? Well, on the low end, the current low end for a PSA 3, $180. Average comp around 220, and on the high end 255. So a pretty tight range between the low and the high, but I was right around average comps for this card. And again, I think this has superior eye appeal over most cards that would get a PSA 3 grade. So there is card number 62, the 57 Topps Hank Aaron. Okay, getting into the last 2 cards here. This one was definitely a surprise purchase, one that I had not expected at all to pick up at the National, but it was a card that I knew I eventually wanted to pick up because it's on my list. It is the 1959 Topps Bob Gibson rookie card. Fell in love with it at the table that I was at, the dealer that I was at. Loved the centering, the color, registration. I think it's an outstanding copy. I'll show you the grade here in a second if you don't already know from watching the National Recap videos. But the centering on the back is sharp. The colors just, I mean, it's a PSA 4. And believe it or not, on my list, I had it in a PSA 4. Now, this is one of those cases where since 2021, I think Bob Gibson rookie card, the prices for his rookie cards have gone up over the last 4 years. Back when I put my list together, I thought for a PSA 4 copy, I would have to spend $550. Well, I don't think anyone can find a 4, and I'll show you, I'll tell you in a second here, for $550 in a 4. You'd probably be looking at one definitely does not have this level of eye appeal. So again, on my list, I had $550 for a 4. I spent $775 for this PSA 4. But, so in other words, I overspent $225. But I look at more of what is this card selling for today? So a PSA 4 on the low end. The low end of a PSA 4 is $575. Average comp for a PSA 4, $630. High end for a PSA 4 is currently $820. So I'm between, average comp and the recent high comp. So I'm right in that middle there. And again, with this level of eye appeal, I couldn't pass it up. Once I saw what the price was, and he was even willing to go down. I think he went down $50. I think he had it for $825. Again, at that, he had it up at the higher end of the comps for PSA 4, and I think it's well justified. But yeah, technically for my list, I overspent by $225. But honestly, you can't get a PSA 4 for $550 these days. So that is card number 63. And the final one, the big one, the big purchase for me for the National, of course, was this gorgeous 54 Topps Hank Aaron rookie card. There we go. Get it focused. Love the centering, color, registration, just everything about it. I knew that I would have to be picking up a low grade copy. And when you start getting into the really low grades, you get some beaters. I mean, there's ones that you can definitely tell are in that low number grade range. But this one was originally an SGC 1.5, and of course I want all my vintage cards to be in PSA slabs, so I crossed it over, and it crossed over to a PSA 1.5. So I didn't lose anything on the number grade. Here is the back of the card. Whoops, switch it over here. Obviously, the card does have issues, or else it wouldn't be a 1.5. But overall, the eye appeal, again, just go on eBay, look at current listings, sold listings, VCP, you have it. There aren't too many examples that look nicer than this in a PSA 1.5, in my opinion. So, what did I have this on my list, and how did I do? All right, I had this, and again, we're talking about 2021 prices here, so keep this in mind. For a PSA 3, I thought I'd have to spend $3,000. Well, for a SGC 1.5, I spent $2,600, and then another $150 to cross it over to PSA. So all in cost, and I have to look at the grading costs. I'm not, I have to be fair and count what I spent to cross it over from SGC to PSA. All in, I'm at $2,750. So technically, I saved $250 from what I thought I would have to spend to acquire a Hank Aaron rookie card. Now, granted, I thought I'd be, for $250 more, I'd be picking up a 3 rather than a 1.5, but I don't see anything wrong with this. You put a PSA 3 next to it, you could have a copy that's less. The centering is worse than this copy. You may get a couple other things that look a little bit nicer, but hey, love this copy here. So happy and fortunate that I have this Hank Aaron rookie card in my collection, which also completes the Hank Aaron Playing Days run. I'll be doing a video on that in a short time here. Showing off all my Hank Aaron cards. But how did I do with this, technically now, PSA 1.5? On the low end, 1.5s are selling for $1,830. Average comp, $2,160. High end, the high comps for a 1.5, $2,860. So I am under, even with the cost of crossing it over to PSA, I am under the high comp for a 1.5. And again, if I had to sell this, I would look to get closer on that higher end of the comps, just because the overall eye appeal. And I bought this one from Ash, and he had it priced accordingly based on the eye appeal. He had it for a fairly strong price with the help of Mike Baseball Collector. Again, thank you, Mike. I was able to get it down to what I thought was a fair price, and yeah, so happy with that. So that is card number 64. Yeah, I'm never going to get all 100 cards unless I hit the lottery, because there's a 52 mantle on my list. My ultimate goal is if I can get to 90, maybe 95, but probably 90 is a safe goal out of the 100. I'm already at 64. It is going to be slow going because some of these cards are getting more into the $1,000 plus price point, even in very low grades, but I'll get there. I'll get there eventually. So let's put this stack here in the middle and see if I can maybe prop up the Hank Aaron. Not sure if I'm going to be able to do that. Well, here, we'll get a stand here. So as I'm going over the totals, we'll put the Hank Aaron there in the corner. All right. So the 7 national pickups. I'm going to talk about these 7, then I'll talk about all 64. So for the 7, so as like a summary of these 7 cards, all right, I thought I would have to spend, based on the grades that I had set on my list from 2021, I thought for these 7 cards I'd have to spend $5,500 for these cards here. I ended up spending $4,655. So I saved $845. Now I say saved. I spent less than I thought I would have to. Obviously, I don't have $100,000 just sitting around, and I saved that amount of money. Call it guy math. But I spent $845 less than what I thought I would have to spend based on my list. So what about all 64 cards to date? Well, for the 64 cards in the grades that I had assigned, I thought I would have to spend $20,700 for those 64 cards. Well, I've only spent $16,670. So I am $4,030 to the good. So it just shows that, you know, when you're looking at cards, at least for me, in certain price points or certain number grades, you can drop down 1 grade, 2 number grades, and still get a great looking card. So to me, again, it's not about the number. If it was about the number, I wouldn't be saving money, and I'd have to spend a lot more for these cards in my collection, and I think I picked up great copies here. So in all, that $4,030 is about 80% of what I thought I would have to spend. So I've saved so far about 20% of what I thought I would have to spend to acquire 64 amazing cards in my collection. So would love to know what you think about these 7 cards, how it matches up with what I had it on my list, what I ended up spending, and whether I got a good deal for the number grade of these 7 cards that I picked up, and my progress so far with these now 64 cards off of my list. And with that, that's all I have for you. So until next time, thanks for watching.